What if choosing sobriety made you the outcast in your own band? 4 veterans escaped dying bands to form a supergroup under Led Zeppelin's protection. 20 million albums, arenas conquered in record time. Then came the fistfight in the studio, a singer shunned for staying clean, and a drummer's death that collapsed their empire overnight. 2 members survived to accept a Hall of Fame honor 50 years in the making. Stick around. This is the crushing story of Bad Company. London, 1973. The wreckage of the British rock scene was everywhere. Bands that had once seemed invincible were falling apart, consumed by excess, ego, and the merciless grind of the road. But from those ashes, 4 men who had already tasted fame and already understood its cost decided to build something new. Paul Rodgers had survived the implosion of Free, a band whose anthem, All Right Now, had conquered radio but couldn't save them from internal collapse. Drummer Simon Kirke had been right beside him through that slow destruction. Guitarist Mick Ralphs brought the swagger of Mott the Hoople, a group that had flirted with stardom but never quite broken through to the top tier. And bassist Boz Burrell added a sophisticated edge, having served time in the complex, demanding world of King Crimson. These weren't wide-eyed kids chasing a dream. These were veterans, scarred, seasoned, and determined not to repeat the mistakes that had destroyed their previous bands. Before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. The chemistry was immediate. Where their former groups had been complicated by internal politics and musical disagreements, Bad Company found clarity. They wanted something pure, something stripped of pretense, blues-based hard rock with no apologies. But even before they recorded a single note, they faced their first battle, the name. Rodgers later recalled that management and the record company fought fiercely against calling the band Bad Company. They argued it was a terrible name, uncommercial, off-putting, but the 4 musicians presented a united front. They would be called Bad Company, and that was the end of the story. That stubbornness revealed something essential about who they were. These men had learned from their previous failures that compromise often led to creative death. They weren't going to let anyone else define them. And then came the alliance that changed everything. Peter Grant was the most powerful manager in rock music. His client was Led Zeppelin, and his reputation for protecting his artists, sometimes with intimidation, always with absolute loyalty, was legendary. When Zeppelin's contract with Atlantic Records expired, Grant launched Swan Song Records in 1974. Bad Company became one of the label's first signings. This wasn't just a record deal, it was a protective shield. The credibility of the Led Zeppelin empire gave Bad Company instant legitimacy, access to the biggest tours, the best promoters, immediate trust with the American audience that would become their most devoted following. But there was a hidden cost to this arrangement. By skipping the traditional struggle phase, the years of building a grassroots following, learning to survive on nothing, Bad Company accelerated straight into the exhausting machinery of arena rock superstardom. They gained everything, and they had no idea what it would eventually take from them. I can't get enough of your love. The debut album didn't climb the charts. It detonated. Bad Company, released in May 1974, shot straight to #1 on the Billboard 200. In just 4 weeks of recording, these 4 veterans had captured something that American audiences had been starving for. Straightforward, masculine, blues-infused hard rock with no pretense and no apology. The sound was deceptively simple. Rodgers' voice, one of the most powerful instruments in rock history, soared over Ralph's chunky guitar riffs, while Kirke and Burrell locked into grooves that felt inevitable, like they'd always existed and were just waiting to be discovered. Can't Get Enough became their signature breakthrough, climbing to #5 on the Billboard Hot 100 and hitting the top spot on the Cashbox chart. Moving On followed, reaching #19. The title track, Bad Company, became an anthem, a song about outlaws and redemption that seemed to speak directly to a generation raised on westerns and searching for something real in an increasingly synthetic world. The irony was unmistakable. Paul Rodgers had made a deliberate choice to leave the ghost of Free behind. He purposely avoided playing All Right Now for years because he felt a powerful need to move on to Bad Company. And here he was, bigger than he'd ever been with Free, proving that sometimes walking away from the past is the only way to build a future. But here's what most people didn't understand at the time. America embraced Bad Company far more passionately than Britain ever did. The album hit #1 in the States. This transatlantic divide would define their career. American audiences heard something in that raw, unpolished sound that spoke to their own identity. The open road, the working class struggle, the dream of freedom. The album eventually achieved multi-platinum certification in the United States. For a debut record, it was a staggering achievement, and it committed them immediately to a relentless cycle of touring that would slowly, invisibly begin to drain everything they had. The mid-1970s belonged to Bad Company. Straight Shooter arrived in 1975 and hit #3 on the Billboard charts, achieving gold certification just over a month after release. Run with the Pack followed in 1976, climbing to #5 and going platinum. They weren't just successful, they were consistent, reliable, a machine that delivered exactly what audiences expected every single time. And then came the song that would define them almost as much as their debut. Feel Like Makin' Love emerged from an unlikely place. Rogers had actually begun writing the track years earlier, while Free was crumbling around him. He kept it on the back burner, waiting for the right moment. That moment came during the Straight Shooter sessions when he played the incomplete song for Mick Ralphs. Ralphs listened, then instinctively added some heft into the chord that leads into the chorus. That single contribution, that controlled raucousness, as Rogers later described it, transformed a tender verse structure into a hard rock anthem. The song climbed to #10 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became a permanent fixture of classic rock radio. This was the chemistry that made the original lineup irreplaceable. Rogers brought the soul and the vision. Ralphs translated those blues ideas into arena-filling power. Kirk and Burl provided the foundation that made everything else possible. When they worked together, something almost alchemical occurred. But success has a way of becoming its own prison. By the mid-70s, hitting the top 5 and earning multi-platinum certifications had become the new normal. The touring never stopped, the demands never lessened, and somewhere in that relentless cycle, the lifestyle that sustained them began to consume them. The parties grew wilder, the exhaustion grew deeper, and the creative spark that had burned so brightly on those first albums began, almost imperceptibly, to flicker. As the 1970s drew to a close, cracks began appearing in the foundation. Burnin' Sky, released in 1977, marked their first significant commercial dip, peaking at #15, still respectable, but a clear departure from their imperial run. Desolation Angels arrived in 1979 and rebounded to #3, delivering the hit Rock and Roll Fantasy. But critics noticed something troubling. The hunger was fading. Some reviews suggested the band sounded out of time, treading water in an era when punk was rewriting the rules, relying heavily on Rogers' powerful voice to carry material that no longer matched their earlier brilliance. Even the album's title, borrowed from a Jack Kerouac novel about disillusionment, seemed to hint at the internal struggles the band was already facing. The physical and emotional burnout was becoming impossible to ignore. Years of touring, of living on buses and in hotels, of giving everything to audiences night after night, had taken a toll that no amount of success could repair. And then came the blow that shattered everything. In September 1980, Led Zeppelin drummer John Bonham died. Because Bad Company was intrinsically linked to Zeppelin through Swan Song Records, Bonham's death acted as an organizational earthquake. Led Zeppelin disbanded, and Peter Grant, the manager whose protective shield had allowed Bad Company to function, even when creatively exhausted, virtually disappeared, struggling with his own personal demons. Simon Kirke later described the cascading effect with painful clarity. Because most of the money in Swan Song was tied up in Zeppelin, the label went into incubation. The band was already pretty well burned out from all the years of touring, and suddenly they lost their external motivation and organizational shield. It was like the proverbial domino principle. Everything started falling away. The fortress they'd built was crumbling, and there was no one left to hold the walls.
Here come the dancers, one by one.
The sessions for Rough Diamonds in 1982 took place in a climate of mutual resentment and exhaustion that made the previous tensions seem almost quaint. The band had polarized around something more fundamental than musical differences: lifestyle choices. Paul Rodgers, seeking sobriety and stability, had reached a point where he felt the band's relentless commitments had completely overtaken his life. He needed to get his feet on solid ground and spend time watching his children grow, something the others, who didn't yet have families, couldn't comprehend. The divide grew wider. Rodgers found himself increasingly isolated, later admitting he didn't feel the guys were pulling their weight. It had become a party all the time. And in a cruel irony, he was ostracized by his own bandmates for choosing sobriety. They attempted to conceal their substance use from him, treating him like an outsider for the very decision that might have saved them all. The tension finally exploded into violence. During those toxic recording sessions, a serious fistfight broke out between Paul Rodgers and Boz Burrell. Kirk and Ralphs had to physically separate them. The brotherhood that had once been the source of such powerful, authentic music was irrevocably broken. Rough Diamonds limped to release and became their lowest charting UK album to that point. The single, Electric Land, stalled at a dismal number 74 in the United States. The magic was gone. Rodgers made his decision. He walked away. Simon Kirk later summarized the inevitable conclusion with characteristic honesty. They were running out of ideas, running out of steam, and just about to run out on each other. When the voice left, the identity left with it. The original Bad Company, the band that had emerged from the ashes of Free and Mott the Hoople with such fierce determination, ceased to exist. Bad Company lay dormant for several years after Rodgers' departure. But by 1986, Mick Ralphs and Simon Kirk decided to resurrect the name. They'd been left twiddling their thumbs, and the brand still held commercial value. They enlisted former Ted Nugent vocalist Brian Howe and pivoted sharply toward the prevailing sound of the era, adult-oriented rock, heavy on synthesizers and polished production, a far cry from the raw blues rock that had defined their origins. Paul Rodgers was furious. He felt pressured into allowing them to continue using the name and believed they should have formed an entirely new entity. He later stated he agreed, thinking they would move forward with integrity, and he was wrong. Despite Rodgers' disapproval, the new incarnation proved remarkably successful. Dangerous Age in 1988 charted with several successful singles. Holy Water in 1990 went platinum, generating radio hits that cemented their place in the corporate rock landscape. But something essential had been lost. Brian Howe himself acknowledged the difficulty in singing the blues when the band was no longer struggling, when the necessary soul had been traded for commercial calculation. Core fans felt the music had become formulaic, drawing unfavorable comparisons to the slick arena rock of the era. The name survived, the sound didn't. Bad Company had become two separate entities in the minds of fans, the classic era and the corporate era forever divided.
Deserters we are called.
Decades passed, the wounds, if not healed, at least softened with time. Bad Company sold 20 million certified albums in the United States and 40 million worldwide, numbers that placed them in the elite tier of classic rock royalty. Their songs became permanent fixtures of FM radio, soundtracking road trips and summer nights, and memories that still resonate with the generation that came of age during their peak. But time also brought loss. Boz Burrell passed away in 2006. Mick Ralphs, the guitarist whose instinctive additions had transformed songs like Feel Like Making Love into anthems, suffered a severe stroke in 2016 that ended his playing career. He died in 2025, leaving Simon Kirk as the only member who participated in every incarnation of the band. And yet, in 2025, came the recognition that had eluded them for so long. The original lineup was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The ceremony was bittersweet. Only two surviving original members, Paul Rodgers and Simon Kirk. Rodgers himself has battled serious health issues, including multiple strokes. Kirk has confirmed the band will not continue touring, but they may play together one more time. 2 songs, 2 survivors. A voice that was nearly stolen by illness, singing notes that defined a generation. Bad Company proved that rock didn't need complexity to be powerful, just honesty, chemistry, and a voice that could shake the rafters. But they also revealed the hidden cost of success, the burnout that fame disguises, the bonds that brotherhood can't always survive. The men who made this music paid dearly for it, some with their health, some with their friendships, all with pieces of themselves. The bonds broke, but the music never did. What's your favorite Bad Company memory? Tell us in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories from rock's greatest triumphs and tragedies.